I have reviewed a lot of storyboard portfolios in my time, especially once I started taking on more leadership positions and I've had to hire and build out entire story teams. In reviewing so many portfolios, I've definitely observed a recurring mistake that I think a lot of new story artists tend to make in their work. It all ultimately comes down to storyboards that are way too clean. They're clean in the sense that the line work is polished and the characters are on model, but the overall storyboard, it lacks a sense of depth and dynamism. It doesn't have what I'm looking for when I'm searching portfolios and trying to hire a story artist. So for today, I want to walk you through a quick demonstration of what I mean when I say we need to let go of clean storyboards and instead embrace detailed storyboards. I'll show you step by step how I personally start and finish a storyboard. And as I've said many times before, it all comes down to intentional visual decisions. My name is Alan, and I am a story artist in the animation industry. To start off, I always try to have my goals and ideas roughly planned out before I jump into digital. I'll either have a written list of story beats, or I'll have these tiny little sketches on sticky notes. If you don't know already, I am obsessed with storyboarding on sticky notes. They're an integral part of my workflow, and it's where I feel the most creative and powerful as a storyteller. I'm gonna go ahead and take a photo of this with my phone and transfer it onto my computer so we can move on to the next step. So here I have my thumbnail sketch and I'm gonna screenshot and import it into Storyboard Pro. I do this to try and maintain as much of the energy and intention from the sketch and use it as the foundation for the rest of my workflow. So for this demonstration, we're gonna go for a dark and gritty scene where our character is exploring an old abandoned office building and they have nothing but a flashlight to light their way. During this really early stage, I'm just blocking in any key elements and adding extra things that I think could help tell this story. This is definitely the time to play and experiment as long as you keep things loose and gestural. Here, I'm also gonna start solidifying the perspective and the position of the camera angle. For this one, it's gonna be a low angle shot. As I do, I'll also adjust some of the drawing like the foreground table and chair to match that perspective, and I'll also throw in an overhead perspective grid to really reinforce that low camera angle. I wanna take a quick moment to talk about perspective. Do not be scared of perspective and definitely do not skip over it. Being comfortable with perspective is mandatory in storyboarding. As we design our shots and build out our sequence, we need to be able to play and experiment in this hypothetical 3D space. And we need perspective as our guide to do all of that. If you aren't comfortable with perspective, it will show in your work. Your shot choices and your sequences are going to come across limited and restrained. Everything will start to look kind of samey to each other because you'll be stuck in your own comfort zone. Take the time to practice perspective drawing so that you can be free to explore and be daring with your visual story choices. I'll eventually make a video going over how I practice perspective, but for now, there are plenty of resources for you online. I'll link some in the bio for you to start with. We don't need to be perfect with our perspective layout, just accurate and confident enough to continue building our scene. From here, I'm blocking in the rest of the environmental elements. These tall office windows, a broken ceiling fan, things that I think can reinforce the gritty tone of an abandoned building at night. I'll also play with the positioning and silhouettes of these objects. For example, I'm bringing that ceiling fan a little closer to our character and making the blades just hover over their heads. This should add a small sense of uneasiness and almost a sense of danger, like it's gonna fall over them at any moment. Another quick tip is to remember to flip your canvas here and there, because for me, I have a natural cant towards one side, so doing that flip, it just shows me where I need to even out some of the drawing. All right, now that we have gestured in all of our key elements, this is where we really get to have some fun with light and tone. I do want to give a warning ahead of time though. Be careful not to overdo this process. We are not painting, we are not rendering, we are simply laying in the broad graphical shapes
that indicate light and shadow, as well as delineating objects to enhance clarity and depth. This part is fun because it doesn't take a whole lot of work, but it delivers a huge impact.
I'll usually start by throwing a gray tone underneath everything, especially for moody night scenes like this one. Then of course, I gotta have that dramatic flashlight beam shape. As you can see, just having these two tones, it gives us so much. Now I will start to block in the tones and clear up some of that object separation and make sure it's clear what's closer or farther away from the camera. I'm also gonna block in the shapes for the tall windows. Even though it's night, I know that the outside will be slightly brighter than the interior office building because of the moonlight outside. I'll also throw in some shadow shapes to really solidify the lighting setup that we have and refine the tones and opacities as I go through.
At this point, the shot is pretty much done. It has all of the key storytelling elements to deliver the story we are going for. However, if we have the time and we want that finished look, there's definitely a bit more we can do to plus up the shot. Again, none of this is in any way cleaning the storyboard. Instead, we're gonna get that finished look by just layering in more elements of visual storytelling.
I'm throwing in indications of trees just outside the window. That should give us a greater sense of depth and really amp up the mood of the scene. I'm also gonna make sure I lay in the window frames too. It not only makes it look cooler, but it also reinforces the difference between interior and exterior space. I'll also loosely sketch in old posters on the walls and little bits of debris and stains. This will really gritty up the environment and amp up how dilapidated the space feels. I'll also make some final adjustments with the foreground elements and composition, just experimenting with the Z-axis and seeing how far I can push depth and make things look interesting.
Alrighty, so we're pretty much done. It is basically what I would consider fully finished. But there's a tad more we can do. This is what I like to call the cinematic icing. It is just a superficial layer of niceties that I like to add to try and give the storyboard that ooh factor. None of this is critical in any way, so be very conservative with it, okay? Don't make me regret showing you this.
I first like to recreate the effect of lensing. By blurring the foreground objects, it's emulating the effect of a camera lens and how objects fall out of focus the further they are away from the focus plane. How blurry something should be does require a bit of experience with film and photography, and it's also dependent on your intention behind the effect. If you're not sure what that is, it might be best to just forego this effect entirely. Since the flashlight is our primary light source, I'm also going to add little layers of softened glow just to really give that effect. I'm also gonna start picking and choosing what parts of the environment are gonna get some of that cast light from the flashlight. Little easy details like this can really ground the scene. Another quick fun effect I like to use are semi-transparent gradients. For this scene, I want the atmosphere to feel thick with dust and has the effect of diffusing all the light in the space. I'll do the same overhead but darker, where things fall gradually into darkness the further it is from the light. Now that I've really set the stage and tone, I'll go ahead and pose out my character and put them through this dark and gritty scene. Again, make sure you are careful not to overdo any of the cinematic icing effects that I'm showing you. Use the proper amounts, and it can really take your thumbnail sketches to a whole new level.
All right, that just about wraps it up for me today. I hope that by me showing you my step-by-step workflow, that you can see why I don't have a cleanup stage in my process, and why I'm recommending that you don't have one either. For me, when it comes to storyboarding especially, cleaning up drawings, it just feels like a chore because most of the time, it's not giving us any more visual storytelling than what the original rough drawings were already providing. Storyboards that are dense with intentional visual storytelling decisions. Those are the additive layers of detail that compel me to want to dive deeper into this artist's portfolio and learn more about them. Of course, not all productions are the same. Some shows really require super clean storyboards, and in those cases, ignore my advice and provide the needs of your team. In my experience though, having worked on a lot of dynamic and cinematic projects, super clean storyboards, they tend to hold us back. We're constantly making changes so quickly, and so we have to strive for the most efficient path for clarity and expression. And that's the skill that I'm always looking for when I'm reviewing story artists' portfolios. I hope that this was helpful, or at the very least interesting. I know I covered a lot of concepts really briefly, and if there's any points that you'd like me to dive deeper in a dedicated video, please let me know in the comments below. I'm still very early in building out this channel, and I really appreciate all the support that I've been getting. Thank you so much, and it motivates me to want to keep this going. I appreciate you watching, and have a wonderful journey out there. Toaster, come on. Toaster, look at the camera. Yeah, this is Toaster, and he will be doing the demo today. Right, buddy? Right? Oh. Should I include this in the bloopers at the end of the video? Yes. Yeah. Hey.